Ready and action.
Good morning, I'm Mrs. Leugers, and today we're going to discuss occlusion. And the way your teeth fit together affects a lot of different things. Number one, your smile, the ability to keep your teeth clean, your facial profile, and another big thing that a lot of times people don't think of is your self-esteem. If you have teeth that are all crowded and it's hard to keep them clean, so there's a lot of decay, it really affects your self-esteem. You don't want to smile. You just don't want to have anything to do with people because you're embarrassed. And so the way your mouth is affects many things. It affects your general health as well. Now, what we're going to do today is attempt to take the confusion out of occlusion. If your bite is not class 1, if it's not perfect, okay, where are we? Is your lower jaw too far ahead? Is it too far back? Which way is it going? And a lot of students have a hard time figuring that out. So we're going to try and take care of that today. I just thought that cat was cute. And to start out, we're going to show you that when we talk about the maxilla, we're talking about all your top teeth. Okay, so if you hear the word or see the word maxilla, it means your top teeth. Mandible is your bottom teeth. And then you can see the mandible fits into your head right there. So it's the only part of your skull that is able to move. So if you're doing orthodontics or you're making any changes in the mouth, the only way you can make changes aside from surgical changes are relates to the mandible. You have to move that. Okay, class 1 occlusion. That is the ideal perfect occlusion that everybody wants. It's the way your teeth meet perfectly, and the way it is the mesial buccal cusp of the maxillary first molars, again we're talking about your top teeth, fit right into the buccal groove of your mandibular first molars. Now I've got typodonts in front of you, and you can kind of take a look at that and see. Some of them are class 1, some of them are not, but at least it gives you an idea of how it should look. Okay, this is a picture of it. You can see right on this one, that mesiobuccal cusp does fit right into the buccal groove of that molar. So this is a class 1 molar. And you can see here, the maxillary canine fits right in between the first bicuspid and the canine. There's a better shot of it here. It's a little blurry, but the canine is exactly right in between the first bicuspid and the mandibular canine. Now, primary dentition is a whole nother story. The canines are exactly the same. The difference is that when you're classifying occlusion in primary teeth, you want to use the second molars. Okay? Don't confuse that. Permanent dentition is the first molars. Primary dentition, second molars. And then, this is a big one. If you have a mixed dentition and you have permanent molars, but you still have primary canines, don't do the canines. Don't mix dentitions. You really want to know where the permanent molars are. You're really looking at the permanent dentition because the primary dentition is basically just giving you a heads up as far as what is ahead. If you've got a primary dentition that is crowded, you know that you're going to have a bigger problem with permanent dentition because the teeth are twice the size, with the exception of 1 tooth, which we'll go into when we're in clinic. Okay, here you can see on this primary dentition, here is the second molar, and the mesiobuccal cusp of the second primary molar is fitting into the buccal groove of the primary second molar. Okay. Class 2 occlusion, that's a lot of writing. You don't have to worry about that. I'm going to tell you very easily. Now in a class 2 occlusion, the maxilla, it looks like the maxilla is ahead of the mandible, but what it really is that the mandible is behind. It's too far back, and so that's why you get that prominent front look, kind of what they call in the old days buck teeth. Okay, this would be 3. This I'll show you. And then the cusp tips of the maxillary canines are also on the mandibular arch are ahead of the maxillary arch. And then we do, I'll show you pictures, but with class 2, solid class 2 occlusions, we do have divisions. In a division 1, all your front teeth are flared out. That's a lot of times what you think of. When you think of class 2, you think of all the front teeth sticking out. But there is a division 2, and division 2 is usually just 2 of them are flared out and 2 of them are back. Let me see if any of you have that. Okay, here's a good example right here. I can show you. See, this is classic. And it's usually, for some reason, it's usually the central incisors that are ones that are tucked back, and the lateral incisors are flared out. See that? You can pass that back to them. And you can see here, this is an example of class 2 division 1. You can see all the anterior teeth are flared out ahead of all the mandibular anterior teeth. The difference between, as I just explained, the difference between division 1 and division 2 is the fact that division 2, not all the teeth are flared out. Here's division 2. This is class 2 division 2. And you can see, this is probably a good shot right here. You can see, just like that typodont, the central incisors are back, the lateral incisors are tipped out. And that's only with class 2. Class 3, mandibular molars and canines are ahead of the maxillary. Understand that? Okay. So in other words, the mandible is too far forward. And here you can see, this one even we were able to get a profile. You can see how his mandible is very prominent. And here you can see, here are the mandibular anteriors ahead of the maxillary anteriors. More of that bulldog look that you always think of. And this just shows you, I mean, malocclusion is not just only related to people. This poor little guy, he's class 3, and his mandibular incisors came in ahead of his maxillary incisors, so since they're longer, the only thing they had to do was they had to, as you can see, split apart in order to fit in his mouth. Poor little bunny. But that's for a veterinary to take care of. Okay, overjet. Overjet is something that is a critical part of occlusion. It's a horizontal measurement. You have 2 measurements. You have horizontal and you have vertical. This happens to be the horizontal measurement.